Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to look at bank reconciliations, and then we still have creditors reconciliation and control and the creditors list and debtors list reconciliation next week, and then that leaves us for 2 weeks for a revision. All right, but we still have to finish these two. So before we start with the question, let's just talk about the bank recon. Why do we do a bank reconciliation? What is the first reason we do it? Okay, to correct our errors. All right, that's the first thing. We want to see if there's any errors, either by the bank or by us. All right, so correct errors. What else? Because that's some of the questions that they ask. We want to complete our books, am I right? Because remember, normally some people will pay their fees directly into our bank account. There will be debit orders that we didn't have EFTs for, so that will show on the bank statement, but that won't show on our CRJ and CPJ. So we have to complete our books, all right? Now, when we do a bank recon, we must remember that we compare an external document, which is the bank statement, to our documents, all right? So think about this. If you buy something from somebody on credit, they are what for us? Creditors, am I right? And what are we for them? Debtors, all right? So the bank statement is exactly the same, all right? So if we have money, just before, if the bank sends us a statement, it is from their point of view, all right? So if there's money in our bank account, it means the bank owes us money, and therefore it will be a credit balance, all right? If my bank is in overdraft, what does that mean? We owe the bank money, so therefore that will be a debit balance, all right? Who of you have bank cards? All of you, all right. What do you call that bank card? A debit card. You don't have credit cards, am I right? Why not? You have to earn some money to have a credit card, because what is a credit card? You buy something, the bank pays that business, and you have to repay the bank. You buy on credit. But what happens with a debit card? The money gets deducted from your card directly, am I right? So when you do the bank recon, just remember, what card do I have? I have a debit card. What do I do with a debit card? I pay. So everything that decreases my money, that makes my money become less, will be on the debit side. And everything that increases my money will be on the credit side. All right. So when we do a bank recon question, you must remember that it's the same as we did with factory overheads, the manufacturing. We first look, what do they want us to do, and then we do the whole question as a whole. So you read the transaction, you decide, must it be in my CRJ, must it be in my CPJ, must it be in my bank recon, must it be in both, and then I complete the transaction and I finish it off. So I don't look for all the CRJs and CPJs and then the bank recon, all right? The second thing, our bank reconciliation statement always starts with the balance of my bank statement. Opening or closing balance? Closing balance, all right? Closing balance, why? Remember, our bank recon is a lengthening or a continuation of our bank statement, okay? If we make errors in our books, where will we correct them? In our CRJ and CPJ. Actually in the GJ, but we don't do the GJ, we just do it correctly in our CRJ and CPJ. If the bank makes an error, we correct it in the bank reconciliation statement, all right? And then there's I don't know if any of you use the one-column method for bank recon. They prefer the two-column method. All right, so it's always better to use the two-column method. So in other words, we will have our debit column and our credit column in the bank recon. As I said, we always start with our balance according to the bank statement. Now, these days, they never give you that balance. Why not? Because they say, you can always see in balance sheets as well. If they give you the bank recon, the bank statement, the balance, your bank reconciliation must balance. Am I right? It must balance with our bank account. Now, if they gave it to you and it doesn't balance, what do? You waste time to find the mistake. So by not giving you the balance of the bank statement, they just, you know it has to balance, and you will never know if your question is 100% correct or not, because it will balance, because you have a balancing figure. All right. So when we start with the bank reconciliation, although we don't have the balance at this stage, you write balance according to bank statement. You always start with that one. Even though they don't give you the balance now, you start with the balance. And if they give it to you, put it in. If they don't give it to you, you know that will be your final figure after you've done the whole question. All right. So let's look at the question. They say the following information relates to slogan traders. The official bank statement from UK Bank is issued on the 28th of each month. Now this is another thing. These days, if you want a bank statement, you go on the internet and you print your bank statement, and it will always be up to date. But for the exam purpose, they will say to you the bank statement is only until the 25th or the 28th, and then there will be transactions after that that you will have to add. It's just for the exam. In theory, in the practice, it doesn't work like that. If you want to do a bank recon, you print your bank statement and you do it, and everything will be up to date. All right. So they ask us to complete the cash journals. Now, here's something. There's two different ways in which they can ask this question. They can ask you to just get the totals of the CRJ and the CPJ, or they can ask you to draw a bank account and just put the entries directly into your bank account. That's the other way in which they ask it, but I'll show you just a little bit later. Then they want us to calculate the correct bank balance. When you see that, calculate the correct bank balance. How did you first, when you started with bank recon, how did you do that? How did you calculate that bank balance? After you've done your CRJ and CPJ, what did you do? You posted it to your bank account. So when they say calculate your bank balance, do a bank account. Don't do this plus that minus that. You draw your bank account. So we will have a bank account. So we will have our bank account. We don't say opening balance plus receipts minus payments. You do your bank account. All right? And the third thing is the bank reconciliation statement. Now they give you the previous month's bank reconciliation. Why do they give it to you? Why do they give the previous month's bank recon for you? There's two reasons. You must see what was the outstanding deposits and EFTs, and now you must check whether they appear on your bank statements. All right? If they appear on your bank statements, what do? Then you can tick them off. They are finished. All right? And if they don't appear, then they will be recorded again in your bank recon. So they stay in your bank recon until they appear on the bank statement. That's one reason. The other reason is they use the previous months, or they give you the previous months, not all of the information, for you to calculate your bank balance. All right. So remember, when we started with bank recon, we did our CRJ, CPJ, we did our bank balance, and we calculated the bank balance, and we compared the two to see whether our bank recon was correct. So if we ended with a debit balance in our bank account, in your bank recon, it would also be on the debit side. All right? If it was a credit. So now they give you the previous month. So they want you to calculate the opening balance of my bank account. Now normally they give it to you in one column, like this question. If we look at it, they give you the 9,000, I'm just going to write it like they give it to you, the 9,500, the 24,400, the 36,600, and the 37,900. That was our bank statement. That was our deposit. And deposit. And that was an EFT. So they say, so what I teach my learners to do is split it up in two columns. Split it up in two columns. So we know, they say here it's a credit balance according to the bank statement, so we know that one must be on the credit side. The outstanding deposit must be on the credit side. So we take it out and we put it on the credit side. The outstanding deposit must be on the credit side. The EFT is on the debit side. So now we know we need our bank balance. In this case it was easy. They said it's a favorable balance. But normally they don't say that. All right. So now we can see, if we take our credit side, the 9,500 plus 24,400, 36,600 gives us 70,500. And that side is 37,900. If we subtract it, we get 32,600. So that's our balancing figure. All right? And we see it's on the debit side. That means our bank balance will start with a debit balance of 32,600. So now remember, you don't have to write in all the dates and folios and everything. You just write the totals on the correct side. So you could have said that plus that minus that, and you get an answer. But that doesn't tell you if it's a debit or a credit. But if you split it in two columns, you know you will be correct, whether it's on the debit or the credit side. All right, everybody understands that. That's very important. Now they give us a note. I just want to put in the CRJ, the total was 232,030, and the CPJ was 102,500. All right. They say the outstanding deposit of 24,400 on the bank reconciliation statement was in respect of sales. It also did not appear on the bank statement for May. Let's say it stopped there. What would we do then if that transaction stopped there? What will we do with that? If they say the outstanding deposit was in respect of sales, it also did not appear on the bank statement of May. Let's say the transaction stopped there. What would we do? It would go to my bank recon again as an outstanding deposit. All right. Hopefully you won't wait a month to see that money that was deposited is not there. So, but it can happen, so then it will stay. But now they say, an investigation revealed that the bookkeeper never deposited the money. It was decided to write off the deposit. So what does that mean? The bookkeeper stole our money. All right. We received the money, so it was in our CRJ, and now we have to cancel it. So where will we cancel it? In the CPJ. All right. Now, in the CPJ, we will have 24,400 What will be the details? To what account will we take that? They say it was in respect of sales. Will you take it to sales? Some memos do take it to sales. I don't agree with that, because it just decreases your sales. And what happened here? It was stolen. So I will rather write loss due to theft. Right, I will open an account, loss due to theft. I won't just subtract it from my sales, because then if I do my statements, I will never see that there was money stolen. All right. If that happened, we recorded the 24,400, so we can tick it off. We recorded that, so that's finished now. All right. Then they say the outstanding deposit of 36,600 appeared on the bank statement. So this one appeared, so we can tick it off. We finished with that one. And the EFT also appeared on the bank statement, so we can also tick that one off. So that means everything that was outstanding has now been handled. It is finished in now. It was recorded and everything is fine with the previous month. All right. Then they give us the CRJ, CPJ totals, which we already wrote in. And then they say, the following information on the May bank statement received did not appear in the cash journal. So what does that tell you? They should be recorded in your cash journals. All right. Yeah. So they say the first one is a direct payment of 108,000 appeared on the bank statement. That was the final repayment of the loan. So that was a payment. So the 108,000 will be in our CPJ. A deposit from M. Martin for her monthly rent. So we received 14,500. 14,500. An EFT for 13,200 was paid to Yanni Traders for trading stock. After an investigation, it was discovered that the bookkeeper neglected to record this. So it just wasn't recorded, so it must be to our CPJ. And what will be the details? What will be the details if you have to fill in the details? Trading stock. It was for trading stock. Sometimes they will say there was a payment to a supplier. If they talk about a supplier, what will that then be? Then it's creditors control. If they say to a supplier, you know it will be creditors control. All right? Then they say EFT fees, cash handling fees, and service fees. You know that is all of them are bank charges. Because if they ask you to do the CPJ, you have to add those three together. Am I right? Because you will have one entry for bank charges. If they just ask you to calculate it, you can write them separately. All right? It doesn't matter. But if they ask you to do the CPJ with the details, you will only have one entry. So if you add those three together, we get 1502. But it won't be wrong if you write the three figures separately. All right? Then there's interest on a positive bank balance. That's CRJ. Sometimes they will say interest debited or credited. So remember, debit card pay. So if it's debited, you know you pay the interest. If it's credited, you know you receive. All right. So in this case, it was on a positive, so we will receive 216 rand. 216 rand. Then there was debit orders for insurance, 7,800 and 5,760. Debit orders is payments, debits, payments, so it's in your CPJ. Now EFT 474 payment for 5262 was in favor of Silverton radiators. The bank duplicated this EFT in the bank account. The bank will rectify the error. So who made the mistake? The bank. So we have to rectify it in our bank recon. All right, so what happened? There was a payment that was duplicated. So what must they do? They must credit it. All right, so we will say credit credit amount wrongly debited. And that will be 5262. Credit amount wrongly debited, or credit double debit, debit order, or double EFT. They don't worry about what you write here as long as it's in the correct column. All right? Then paid the creditor electronically 14,300. So we paid the creditor 14,300 paid, so it's in the CPJ. And then they say a bank error of 7,900 was reflected as a deposit on the statement. The bank will rectify the error. So that means somebody else's money was deposited in our account. So it must come out. So how will we take it out? Debit. All right, we will say debit. Amount wrongly credited, or whatever you want to do. Debit amount wrongly credited, and that will be 7,900. 7,900. Then they say the following information appeared in the cash journals, but not on the bank statement. So that's our outstanding deposits and EFTs. I always say to my learners, I tell them to do that. They never do it, but I try to get them to do that. When you do your bank recon, write every time credit, outstanding deposit. Don't just write outstanding deposit. Write credit, outstanding, debit, outstanding, EFTs. Because you can't believe how easily you can get confused in exam. And if you are used to write credit, outstanding deposit, debit, outstanding, you can't get confused because you know that. So the EFT will be a debit. Debit, outstanding EFT, number 323, and that will be 45,165. 45,165, and credit our outstanding deposit. Credit the outstanding deposit of 27,660. And that's everything. So now you must remember, and that's one of the mistakes that the learners make. This is actually two different things. So we're going to finish this one, and we're going to finish this one, and then normally we compare. Okay, but I'll show you just, let's just quickly complete then. So if we add our CRJ total, that total will be 246,746. And the payments 277,462. So now we will have our total receipts, which is 246,746, and total payments 277,462. So 78. So it seems like the debit side is the bigger figure. $279,346. $1,884. I think this is one of the reasons, Sumner, but let's just quickly finish the question. Now, we have our bank balance and we don't have the bank statement balance. So that means we have to take our bank balance over to our bank recon. And it's a debit balance, so we will have debit balance according to the bank account, which is 1884. So we see the debit side is the bigger figure, that is 54949. So we know the credit side must also be 54949. And then if we subtract those two, we will get a balance of 22027. And luckily they said it's a favorable balance, so it's a credit balance. So that one will be our balancing figure. All right. Let's say they gave you the 22027. So what a lot of learners do, if they give you this figure, a lot of learners take this figure and they put it in and then they add the two columns. Now let's say you made a mistake. Let's say you left out that 14,300. All right? What will happen to my bank recon if I bring this if I bring the bank balance over? What will happen to these two totals? They will differ. Am I right? And remember, your bank recon may never differ, the totals. They must always be the same. So when they give you that figure, the 22027, you don't have that one. You calculate that one. In other words, you will add those two, you will subtract those two to get that one as your balancing figure. And then you balance your bank account and you compare the two. If it's the same, you know you are correct. If it's not the same, then you know either here or there you would have made an error, a mistake. So normally the mistake will be here. Normally this is easy. This one is not, most of the learners get it right. But some learners make a mistake here and they bring that total over and then they lose this mark because it was not a calculated figure, and they will lose the mark for the totals. You will see on the memos they will normally say 1 mark if the same. So then you will lose 2 marks, which is not necessary, and then everything was actually correct on your bank reconciliation statement. So always make sure the only time that you bring that balance over is if they don't give you the balance. And we said that normally in the exams that normally happens that way. They don't give you, or they can leave out any one of those. They can say there's an outstanding deposit. Then they give you that figure, you calculate that one, and then that one will be your balancing figure. So they don't always have to give you the balance as a balancing figure for the bank statement. Sometimes it can be that the deposit or one of the EFTs are your balancing figures. All right. Any questions on the bank recon? I'll show you just something else. We have some time left, but I'll show you now. Then they ask us the next question. That's one of the normal questions they ask. Refer to the outstanding deposit of 24,400. And then what did they say happened to that? They say that it was stolen by the bookkeeper. No, he never deposited the money. So how can you avoid this problem in the future? How can we avoid that we only find out on the end of April that the deposit of the 12th of April wasn't in our bank statements? Okay, division of duties is always one of the answers. But what do we mean by division of duties? Because we must always add something. We must never just write division of duties. Always, if it's with stock, we say the one person ordering the stock must not be the same as the one receiving the stock. In bank recon, division of duties means one person receives the money and the other one deposits the money so that they check each other. All right? Another solution? Encourage EFTs so that you have less cash. So there's no less cash going through your books. Encourage EFTs. more regular deposits. If you do it more regularly, they can't be that big. If you look at this one, 12 April and 28 April, a long time between each other. So we can encourage more regular bank deposits. SMS reminders. Luckily these days all the banks give you the SMSs, so you can see this guy went to bank and you will immediately see that that money was not deposited. So ask for SMS services. You can also use these cash in transit companies that go and deposit your cash. That's normally for big businesses. All right, they can use it. The other question that, or the other problem that you will sometimes see, let's say they did not say anything about the 12 April that the money was stolen. It's just there was an outstanding deposit of 12 April and an outstanding deposit on 28 April. The problem lies there that they do not do regular deposits. All right. So that can also be an error if it was not that the money was stolen. You just look at the bank recon and see there was 2 outstanding deposits at the end of the month. One was 12 April, one was 28 April, or maybe 25. Then you can see that they do not do regular deposits. So that can also be a problem. All right. Any questions on this particular question? All right. They can also ask you the question in a other way where they say, they give you columns. So they will say CRJ, CPJ, bank recon, and then they will put a debit or a credit, and they will say no entry. They can ask you to do it like that. So let's look if we do some of the transactions that way. If we look at the outstanding deposit of 24,400, which was stolen, the money was stolen, so we know that one will go to my CPJ. So the 24,400 will go to my CPJ. Then they say the outstanding deposit of 36,600 appeared on the bank statement. So what do we do with that? No entry. So that one will be no entry. You can just do that, or sometimes they will say make a tick or whatever they say. All right. They can say to you the EFT appeared, so that EFT will also be no entry. So they can ask you to do it like that. You understand that? All right. The other transaction that they also sometimes put in is they say the manager made an EFT or a purchase with a debit card after the bank statement was received. So if he made a purchase with a debit card, it must be recorded in our CPJ. And then that transaction must also be recorded in our bank reconciliation. All right? Because it will not appear on your bank statement because we received the bank statement before we did the transaction. All right. Then there's one other entry. Now, we used to ask it when we did checks, when we did payments with checks. And now they still want us to do it with EFTs. I don't think it worked like that, but they ask it in the question. They will say, we have a post-dated EFT for 10,000 Rand for trading stock. There was a post-dated, so in other words, what does a post-dated means? It means it's something that we pay today, but we put the date. What is today's date? 10/11, where do I? 12, 11. Let's say we put the date as 31st of May in our books, or let's say 30 June. So we made a payment, but we post-dated the date to 30 June. Why would we do that? Why would a business do that? Let's say they want to buy a big vehicle, a vehicle. And now they have a fixed deposit. that only matures in June. And now they ask the people, we want to buy this vehicle. We have this deposit which will only mature in June, so we will give you your money in 30 June. In the old days, you would write them a check, and the date on the check would be 30 June. So that person knew when 30 June came, he could take that check and he could deposit it and he would get his money. All right. So now we don't have checks anymore. So we work with EFTs. So now they say we can issue a post-dated EFT. Remember, it's not a prepaid, it's a post-dated. So in the old days, we would record that check in our CPJ at this moment. What will happen to our bank recon? Because in that days, that person couldn't do anything with the check until the 30th of June. So if we come to the end of May, that check would not have been paid in, so it would show as an outstanding check, outstanding EFT. So the same thing applies here. If we make a post-dated EFT, we must record it in our CPJ. We must record it. And then it will show outstanding in our bank record. All right. And it will stay outstanding until it appears on our bank statement. All right. So it's just a normal outstanding EFT. But now there's another question they ask. Then they will ask you, how do you handle this post-dated EFT in our financial statements? Or they will give you the balance sheet and they will say, at the end of the year, there was a post-dated EFT of 5,000 Rand that did not appear, there was a post-dated payment of 5,000 Rand. So how would we handle that in our financial statements? Remember, what did we say? We recorded it in our CPJ. Did we actually pay it? Let's say I have a 10,000 post-dated EFT. I record 10,000 here, so my total will be 278. Am I right? But did I actually pay it? No. So what will happen to this figure? If we decrease this figure, if we take it out, it means my balance will increase. So if I have a post-dated payment, I will add that to my bank balance. Now, if I add it to my bank balance in my balance sheet, my cash equivalents, will my balance sheet balance? No, we can't just add it at the top. We actually owe that person that money, am I right? So it will also go to my creditors control. So if they say there's a post-dated EFT at the end of the financial year, I will add it to my bank account, that figure, and I will also add it to my creditors control because I still owe that money. All right, you have it. What happened if my bank was in overdraft? Then both of that figures is in the bottom part of my balance sheet, am I right? So then I will subtract it from my overdraft and add it to my creditors control. All right. So make sure that you remember that they can ask you that in the balance sheet question. They can say there was a post-dated EFT of 5,000 Rand. So then you must remember I have to add it to my bank and add it to my creditors because I owed it. Or if my bank was in overdraft, I would subtract it and add it to my creditors control. All right. So that's more or less all the questions that they can. I see this question did not have an error where they said, let's say this figure, the EFT of 37,900 appeared on the bank statement as 39,700 and the bank statement was correct. So the 37,900, where did we get this from? Where did we get this figure from? Last month, CPJ, am I right? So we wrote it as 37,900. And the correct figure is 39,700, which is 1,800 difference, am I right? So we have to increase this figure. And if we have to increase it, it will be in my CPJ. The other way around, let's say this one was correct, but we recorded it as the correct figure is 35,000. So we have 2,900 too much. So we will have to CRJ 2,900 in the CRJ. All right. So the errors that we make, we correct in here. If it's an EFT and it's still not enough, or it's less than the correct figure, we have to add in the CPJ. If it's too much, we subtract in the CRJ. All right. Questions? So next week we look at the other two recons: creditors list and creditors control, or debtors list and debtors control, and our statement that we receive from our suppliers, the creditors ledger and the debtors statement. And we'll also look at the age analysis next week. So that's, and then we're finished, and then the week after that we will do income statement, balance sheet, something like that, and then cash flow, and then the third one is, I think there's one left, so then maybe we'll decide on what do we want to do for that Saturday. All right, because we write on the Monday and the Thursday, I think, that first week, so we are finished early. Then after that, we will work through that paper. We will work through that paper, the two papers, we'll try and work through them to the end of the month. All right, enjoy your week.